because he has a camera that's right there. Oh, okay. And it's going to pick you up. The Lord be with you. Oh, I love the way that works. Well, it sort of works. All right, people. Listen up. Listen up. Hello. I know you're all... Look, I'm going to turn you over to Adrian again, and he's going to have our presentation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Christopher, and thank you again, everybody, for inviting me and having me here with you here today. I'm excited to talk to you about Badge of Pride from Silence to Celebration. And when we open in just days from now, it will be the largest exhibit on LGBTQ plus history ever mounted in the state of Texas. It is going to be a tremendous experience. Thank you. But what I'd like to do is give you a little bit of the Badge of Pride origin story, kind of how we got here and how we got this thing in Irving of all places. So I'll tell you about that. It's a funny story. But what I always like to do whenever I give a presentation is talk about one of the words that is right there in our name, pride, and how do we define the word pride. And for us, it is confidence and self-respect expressed by a group, typically one that has faced social, institutional, and legal marginalization based on their shared identity, culture, and experience. It is an assertion of dignity, of visibility, and solidarity in the face of historical oppression and discrimination. That definition is central to everything that we do at Badge of Pride. So whenever I'm approached and asked to take on a new project or to explore a new opportunity, I always go back to this definition and say, does this help me fulfill that definition of pride? So why are we doing this, right? So there is a fierce urgency of now. As of just last week, the ACLU was tracking 588 anti-LGBTQ plus pieces of legislation around the country. And, you know, if you remember, Christopher and I, we met in Austin at a lobbying day. And there, at that point, Texas was like, hold my hat, y'all. We're going to go even wilder than that, and 205 pieces of legislation. Almost none of them have gotten through, but a handful of them have. And let's be real clear, every one of these is anti-trans, anti-gender nonconforming people, just period, right? And so to combat that is how Badge of Pride formed. And we formed around a central question that was asked by Harvey Milk. He asked, how can people change their minds about us if they don't know who we are? And so that question is what we're trying to answer with this exhibit. Because I think for most people, the average person, if you really understand somebody, if you really know where they're coming from, it's really hard for you to be awful to them, right? And I say this for the average person. There's lots of exceptions that we get to see every day, but I think for the average person, if they know who we are, they'll move further on their journey to allyship. So Badge of Pride's mission is to activate artifacts from LGBTQ plus history to inform, enrich, and engage the power of the contemporary queer experience. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how we fulfill that mission. But we have, as the foundation of all of the work that we do, we have a collection of 10,000 artifacts, more than 10,000 artifacts, from LGBTQ plus history from around the world and reaching back all the way in time 2 millennia. The oldest object in our collection dates back to 323 before the Common Era. So it's over 2,000 years old. One of the first questions that people always ask is, because this was my personal collection, so Badge of Pride was formed to activate the personal collection that I had built over the course of 30 years. And so one of the first questions that people ask is like, how did you get all of this stuff? My husband asked me that, what are you doing with all of this stuff? I'm a very organized pack rat, but it all started when I was coming of age in the early 1990s. So I'm giving away my age here. And, there were no classes in school. There were no books in the library. And my coming out process was devastating. It was a terrible experience for me. And I am forever grateful to PFLAG parents. I don't know if we have any PFLAG parents in the room, but hands down, PFLAG is my favorite LGBTQ organization, affiliated organization, hands down, because they literally saved my life as a 19-year-old in West Texas. It was not great. But what these folks did is they said, you are not broken, and you are worthy, and you are connected to a community. And so they would start sharing articles with me, and I would read them, and I would see names. And as an example, you go through, and it would say, so-and-so was at the Stonewall uprising in 1969, and they're still in New York. So I would call directory assistance 212-555-1212. I would talk to the phone company and say, is this person listed in the phone book? And is their address available too? And so this is also before caller ID, so they would answer the phone. And so here I was, this 19-year-old gay kid in West Texas asking questions to these people who had made history. And they were like, hey, I'm going to send this gay thing, this young gay kid, something that shows him that he's connected to a broader community and he's connected to history. And so the stuff started showing up. And they would say, hey, you need to talk to my friend here and my friend here. And that was just this network. And then ... 30 years later, 10,000 objects in my house. My husband's pulling his hair out and saying, what are you doing with all of that stuff? And so in 2022, or rather in 2020, COVID, like everything, it forced us all to stop and consider what was important. And I was in a corporate job. I had almost 27 years of corporate executive experience. And I said, this work is not meeting my values anymore. And so I left. And in 2022, formed Badge of Pride, and I'll talk to you a little bit about some of the work that we've done here in the community. So we've started an oral history project. I'll show you about that. We have been doing pop-ups around the Metroplex. We have a badge making machine that people go absolutely nuts over. And we've done some really cool workshops with young people down at the Oaklawn Branch Library. And then we did a pop-up exhibit last June to test the theme, sort of a proof of concept of the exhibit that is opening in just a few days' time. This was a much smaller example of it here. But we had, with no promotion, and we put it together in a week. We had almost 1,000 people come out to the Irving Archive and Museum in June of last year. It was remarkable. And we got protested, so we're official. So we have our oral history project. And so we've started taking interviews with folks who have made LGBTQ plus history in ways large and small, and it's been amazing to listen to these stories, connect with these people. We're actually partnering with the Pride Museum of Texas, and at the Dallas Arts District Pride Block Party, we'll be doing an oral history pop-up lab. So you come in 10, 15 minutes, we ask you some questions, we record it, and you become part of the archive. It's going to be a lot of fun. But we also, this month, it's hard to believe we're already in Pride Month now, but on the 26th marks the 10th anniversary of the Supreme Court granting marriage equality in the United States. And so we're going to start a special oral history project called Rings, Rights, and Radical Love. And I have a little tiny video here to show you. So who doesn't love talking about love, right? In this world where there's so much discord, one thing that unites us is love. And if you want to see somebody's face light up, ask them to tell you their love story. And so I can't wait to kick that project off this summer at the museum. It's going to be tremendous. So now, Badge of Pride, from Silence to Celebration, why I was invited to talk to you about this exhibit. As I mentioned, it's been 3 years in the making, this particular work. It's our first major exhibition. As I mentioned, this will be the largest exhibit of LGBTQ plus history ever mounted in the state of Texas. And it is different in that it is artifact centered. So you will not just be reading a panel about history, you will be able to see the artifacts that were witness to that history and have that physical connection with these objects. We've built it around 4 key themes. So as I mentioned earlier, we're not marching you through a timeline because that's a little boring. So we've built it around 4 themes. And so and I'll dive deeper into these, but really to summarize it, we talk about the emergence and recognition of LGBTQ plus identity before Stonewall. So what was life like back then? We talk about resistance and systemic oppression and societal discrimination, because we can't talk about this without talking about our dearly departed Anita Bryant. And so she features very prominently in this section of the exhibit. We also, you cannot tell this community's history without dealing head on with the AIDS crisis. The focal point of this will be 2 blocks from the National AIDS Memorial Quilt that we will have on display with deep North Texas connections. And then finally, the celebration of pride, community, and the ongoing fight for equality. So that's the really fun one. And so we'll just do a quick double click on some of these. So I mentioned earlier, we talk about claiming identity. We talk about how we organized and how we built community and connection before the visibility that Stonewall afforded the community and the emergence of the gay liberation movement, which really started immediately. I mean, almost the next day after the Stonewall uprising, these folks got together, started organizing, started demonstrating and becoming visible. And so as we're seeing today, anytime our community makes an advance, there is a backlash. Right? And so as the gay liberation movement was really getting its legs and it was moving forward, I mentioned our dear friend Anita really kind of stepped in and said, no, this is too much of a party here. And that set a model of putting the rights of a minority on the ballot for the public to vote on. Typically, in the past, that had just been done through legislators kind of doing that on their own. But this was the first time that we said, hey, this group of people here, do you think they deserve these rights? And that set a model that has continued for decades since then. So we deal with that head on in the exhibit as well. I mentioned AIDS. We'll have the 2 panels, or the 2 blocks of the National AIDS Memorial Quilt there. We'll have some of the very first buttons from ACT UP around the world. There's a very large collection of those that we have, but also how the community responded in terms of love and care. And so that's really demonstrated beautifully by some of the jackets that have been made for the DIFA annual fundraiser, the DIFA Gala. We'll have 3 of those on display thanks to a private collector here in Dallas. And then we get into celebrating our pride and power. And so we talk about the grassroots origin of pride to the global phenomenon that it is today. We talk about the community's rise into the halls of power. And here, as an example, we will have former Dallas County Sheriff Lupe Valdez has made some of her personal artifacts available to be on display. Glenn Maxey, who was the first openly gay state legislator in Texas, has also donated objects to be included in this. But then we also really talk also about the work that is still yet to be done. One of the most emotionally impactful elements of the exhibit will be a selection of another exhibit that was done last fall here in Dallas called Lost Faces. It was put on by Equality Texas, and it deals head-on with the origin of Trans Day of Remembrance and the violence that is perpetrated almost daily against black and brown trans women. And this is such a deeply emotional part of the exhibit where we've built it so it can have its own kind of quiet reflection area because it's a hard thing to think about. But it's necessary because we have work that we got to go do. You've seen our posters around here, and so we have 5 different designs. So you see Harvey Milk, Oscar Wilde, Sally Ride, Sylvia Rivera, and Barbara Jordan of Texas. You'll see, and I designed these last summer. I did not know how prescient the fight against erasure and how real that was going to become. And that's what that design tries to remind us of, is that progress is fragile and that we have to fight against erasure every day. One of the things that I'm really excited about this is we will be on the Bloomberg Connects platform. This is an arts and culture platform that's powered by Bloomberg Philanthropies. We just went through a cohort to build a digital guide on this platform, and it is live. So you could scan that code and download the app, and you could start to see some of the themes and the artifacts that are in the exhibit, some of the interactive material that we've put in there to really enhance the experience. So when you come, download the app, bring your headphones, because I want you hearing this stuff. You're going to hear, I was talking about that very first Pride in June of 1970. You will hear audio recording from that day and how those people who took those first steps and that very first Pride March, their reactions directly from them. It is remarkable. And there are over 800 museums, galleries, and institutions that are on this platform. We are only, and that includes like the Met, the Guggenheim. So we're keeping pretty good company there. But this will be only the 3rd LGBT-centered experience on the platform worldwide. And also in North Texas, we're only the 3rd on the platform in North Texas. So the National Sculpture Center and Dallas Black Dance Theater Company are the other 2 that are on there in North Texas. So this is a tremendous tool, and it will really, really bring elements of the exhibit to life. It's going to be, it's really cool. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the events that we have a stacked calendar of events that we're starting to announce. It all kicks off this Friday, so if you're up for a big gay party, come on out to the museum on June the 5th, this Thursday. It will be a lot of fun. We'll have the Uptown Players doing some entertainment. We'll have some poetry, some spoken word. It'll be a good time. So that's this Friday. And then some other events that we've announced. If you're familiar with the No Hate campaign, photographer Adam Buska and his partner Jeff Parsley will be here. They'll be talking about the origin of the No Hate campaign, the global impact that it's had, and then there will be an opportunity, a photo shoot for you to get your own photo taken in that style. But not everything is happening at the museum. On June 25th, we're partnering with the Writers Garret to bring in Tom Fitzgerald and Lorenzo Marquez, or Tilo, as they like to call themselves. They are hilarious pop culture bloggers, and they wrote this book, Legendary Children, that looks at RuPaul's Drag Race. Everything that you see in RuPaul's Drag Race has a historic through line reaching back over a century. And so they explore that. They're very, very funny. My husband, Aaron, will be the moderator of that conversation. So it's just going to be like a stand-up show. So it'll be a lot of fun. Then we'll also have in July, we're partnering with Yesterqueer in Tarrant County and Cinewild to bring Raid of the Rainbow Lounge. If you're familiar with that, 40 years to the day, the Rainbow Lounge in Fort Worth was very violently raided. 40 years to the day of Stonewall. So they made a documentary about this, and it really changed Fort Worth and Tarrant County for the better, but it was a very painful experience. So we'll have the filmmaker there, as well as several people who were there that night. We are also on the 4th Saturday of July, August, and September. We're going to have community activation days. We're inviting all LGBT and allied nonprofits, community groups, churches, so y'all come on out to come. There's a huge lobby where people can table for free and just kind of make it a big festival every 4th Saturday for the run of the exhibit. I've been really moved by the community response. So no corporate donors. Because we read the news, those are all disappearing, right? No, they're not supporting Pride or anything like that. So we've had to take a much more grassroots approach. I've been moved by communities of faith and small businesses that have stepped up to help us fund this work. We're also working with a whole lot of partners around the Metroplex to bring this to life. So we've tapped into the Dallas Way's archive, the Yesterqueer archive. So the Dallas Way, I'm sure you know, they are sort of the local gay history group, and Tarrant County is the one for Fort Worth. And so that's how we've been able to work to bring local elements into the story of the museum. So I'm very thankful for those partnerships. Okay, you want to get involved. What do you do? If you are on social media, find us on social media and be our #1 fan. Like, I'm serious, y'all. Be obsessive about it. Like it, share it. I need eyeballs looking at this content. If you have free time, we just yesterday had our second class of volunteer docent training. So if you have free time and you want to hang out at a museum and talk to people and maybe give some tours of the experience, scan that code. We would love to have you, because as soon as we get more people, we're going to do another training. So stay tuned on that. Also, then come be a VIP. Come to our party on Thursday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. At the end of the day,